Welcome, everyone. So excited to have you here today. My name is Hunter, and I'm a support specialist here at Tripleseat. So excited to share with you all some information today on reporting. But before we get into it, we're just going to wait for another minute or so to allow those stragglers to get into the lobby. All right. Now, to everyone who is here and to those who are to still join us, I wanted to say welcome. I'm so excited to have you all here for our webinar today and really excited to share some knowledge with you all. So, first, let's get some of the logistics out of the way before we get to dive into the good stuff. So, as you might have noticed, your microphones are muted and will be for the duration of the webinar. But if you do have questions, we have a Q&A section that you can see within your screen, and you can type in your questions, and my teammates will be there standing by to help answer them as we go. And if you have any questions that you think of later after the presentation, or you're watching this outside of the live webinar, feel free to reach out to us at support@tripleseat.com, or you can use that help question button within Tripleseat to kind of send us any of those reporting questions you may have. Speaking of watching this outside of live, each person who registered for this webinar will receive a recording that's going to be sent to the email address you entered when you registered. Now, without further ado, I am thrilled to be presenting what I believe is one of the most criminally underutilized features within Tripleseat, and that is reporting. And what better time to look into reports than December, and as the new year looms over us when everyone and their mother is making New Year's resolutions for themselves. And reporting, using that, let's see if maybe we can make some New Year's resolutions for our businesses and some stretch goals for the years to come. All right, so let's get started. Let's head into Reports tab. That's going to be on the left-hand side. Right at the bottom. You might have overlooked it before, but you won't now. So looking in this tab, you're going to see there's many reports. We're not going to go over all the reports today. There's a lot of information baked in here. So if you get inspired by this webinar, please go in, take a look at some of these on your own. There's a lot of great information they can provide for you. But before we actually get into any of the deep dive reports that we're going to do today, what we need to do first is make sure that all of our information within Tripleseat is good. And what I mean by that is I want to make sure that all our events are closed out, all of our payments are paid, so that when we run these reports, we are reporting on a totality of our information, that everything is, all set. Now, to make this report, we're going to run an events payments report on all of our outstanding payments. So I'm going to click on that, get it started, because it takes a minute to pull up here. And while that's pulling up, I want to also mention that if you have the new booking tab in your top right hand corner of the screen. Instead of running this event payments report, you're going to run this booking payments report. Just 2 reports down, not too far away. But you will want to run this event payments report if you have this new event button in the top right hand corner of your site. So you can kind of check that. That'll help you see which report to run. Now, I love to say, before getting into this report, good data in equals good data out. So that's why we're running this report first before doing anything else. We want to make sure that all the information on our site is verified, validated, Tripleseat, triple checked. Perfect. Okay, it's all pulled up. Now, the first thing I do when I get into any report is I'm going to visit my best friend, and soon will be your best friend, the customize button in the top left-hand corner of your screen. By clicking this button, we're going to open up a fresh, basically pop-up window, and this is where you are going to find the key to your reporting, basically finding any information that you would want to filter and solidifying what you're looking at in your report. So first, I want to make sure that in this report, my payment status is outstanding because I want to make sure that the payments that I'm looking at have not been paid yet. And that's the point of this report, that we're seeing payments that haven't been closed out that should be. And I just want to see that remaining balance on those payments. For example, if part of that payment has been paid, I don't want to see the total amount on the event. I just want to see the remaining balance that hasn't been paid yet so we can figure out how to get that taken care of. Next, I want to make sure that the place where I'm looking at my payment, the location, I'm going to just look at it for porcupine and bear, so I'll check that off. But if you wanted, you could check off multiple of these if you have multiple locations and you want to pull a report for all of them at the same time. And specifically with any of these drop downs that have multiple like check boxes, if you leave all of the check boxes blank, it's going to include all of them as if they're all checked off. For example, I'm not going to check off any of these active users because there's very many, and I want to include all of them. So by not checking any of them off, it's going to include all of them. I don't need to touch it. That just kind of like, gives you a quick motion to the next portion rather than having to go through and manually checking each one. So we're going to hop over to the next tab. There's a couple different tabs, and we have some information to procure. So for the event details tab, we're going to hop in here because we want to look at specific events. Specifically, we want to look at events this year because we just want to, make sure that everything's been closed out this year. And I'm going to select year to date, mainly because that's going to show me any events before today. So that, if there are events that still haven't happened yet that might have outstanding payments, that's not conflating my data. I'm just receiving information about events that should be closed out by this point. And in terms of statuses, I'm going to include the definite status and the closed status on those events, just so I can see those events when I'm pulling my information. Sweet. So we're going to skip the grouping and sorting tab within this report, but we are going to visit it later, and it's going to be very important. So we'll come back. But for columns, this is going to be the most important tab within your reports. These are the columns that pull within your report. They basically are the heart of the information that you're establishing. So there's a lot of customization here, choosing the columns that you want to show, the ordering of those columns, etc. So to look at which columns are going to be pulling into your report, you're going to look at this column over here, the selected columns. And you can see there's quite a few. By default, it pulls many columns. So if there are columns that you're like, I don't really care to see this in my report, you can click the red trash can to the right of that column and boop, it's gone. And I personally think a slim report that has just the information you're looking for is going to be a much more easily readable report. So I usually suggest taking out any columns that aren't necessary. I'm going to be pretty active in deleting these. Now, where do these columns come from? If you want to see your available columns, that's what this middle section is for. And you can see there's a lot of checked off columns. I can delete them over here, but alternatively, I can also just uncheck them here and it will remove them as well. So that's one thing. And not all of the columns automatically are added. So if you wanted to have like additional columns that weren't added, or you accidentally deleted one and you wanted to re-add it, you can come over here and check them off. And the column groups over here is just a way to organize where all of these columns are so that it's not in just one giant available columns list. This is just kind of like an organization hierarchy. So you have your like booking columns, your account and contact columns, etc. So you can come into each of these, see if maybe there's some additional columns that you want to include, check them off. They're going to be added over here. For now, I'm just going to start deleting a bunch of these columns over here as I don't really need them. The one that I'm going to need first is going to say amount due. And there she is. So I'll grab that one and I'm going to leave that one. And then I'll keep the event actual. And I'm going to keep deleting these here until I get a lot less columns that are not going to clutter our report. Okay, we want the owner. And let's do that. Perfect. Just 6 fields, very simple. And it's going to give us an updated, clean report. Look at that. Beautiful. Now, what I have here, just to kind of give a representation of it, first of all, it's going to tell me how many rows I have. And each of these rows is going to represent an event. So this is a corporate event. This is a bar mitzvah, etc. Now, my expectation for this outstanding payments report, the ideal is that it's empty. I don't want any outstanding payments. That's not great. We want it to be everything to be closed. We want everything to be paid for. So the fact that I have 4 in here is it's not bad. It means most of my team has been, completing everything. But I would need to have a talk with these owners, Katie Marsh, Davina, and Jonathan, be like, can you check in on these specific events? Do you know why they're not closed? Do we need to collect on those payments? Or did you just forget to close it out and you received it in store? Regardless, just making sure that everything's taken care of is good for anybody who's in billing accounting, as well as anybody who's in the directors, being making sure that everything's getting done. All right. And now, now that we see this, we can, we'll get that handled with them. Everything will be cleared up and we can start going into our other reports. But while we're here in the event payments report, there's actually another very interesting report that we can make with this. We're going to take a little bit of a time skip from the past, payments before now, to the future with a report that will help start the new year off on the right foot for all accountants in the room, and that's going to be a liabilities report. So a description of that real quick is just that it's a report that shows all paid payments for events that have yet to happen in the future. And this is a great report to have on hand for accountability and security. For example, if tomorrow, let's say you decided to close your business and follow your dream of becoming a traveling magician, how much would you owe to guests for events that you've taken deposits on that have yet to occur? That's what this report pulls. Basically, the amount of liquid cash you need to have on hand for if your business were to close tomorrow. So I'm just going to pull this up real quick. We've gotten questions on this. Want to make sure that we can suss that out for those accountants. So you would just hop back into the customize. And the first thing we're going to change is the payment status. We don't want it to be outstanding anymore. We want it to be paid. We want these payments to have been successfully paid. And I'm going to change this just to be all areas. And again, I said earlier, if you just uncheck the box, when all of those locations are available, boom, they're all going to be checked off. So I'm going to do it for all the locations. And then next I'm going to come over here and I'm going to switch this to be for the rest of time after today. So I'm going to come to this all dates after. I'm going to choose today and boom, it's going to include all dates after today. That's not today. I'm going to choose all days after today. Perfect. So it's going to do that. And it's going to basically say from now until basically forever. Any time which you could possibly have an event booked. then the next thing we want to do is we want some additional information within our columns for when we are actually looking at this. We no longer want to know how much is due, so I'm going to remove that. Instead, I just want to know the amount that was paid. So I'm going to change that to amount. And I actually want to see this pretty far up because that's really important to me. So I'm going to move that. And this, moving it with this drag and drop will change the ordering of your columns. So I'm going to move this up so I can see the amount up a little bit higher in my report. Perfect. So I'm going to update that so we can see what we got going on. Now, we got 39 rows, so a couple events happening in the future for our locations. And if all of our locations closed tomorrow, remember, we moved the amount up, so it's the second row here. Our grand total is that we need to have 74K, almost 75K on hand to be able to make those payments. So we know this, our accountants are like, aware of that, and boom, we're going to make sure we have that and we're set. Perfect. Now that we've secured our future in case of a calamity and covered our bases by making sure we have all good info in, let's get into the good stuff and open the gift of what our last year within Tripleseat can inform us about the coming year. And you know what? Let's start with money because what is a business without revenue and money? And for this, let's venture into the land of finance with our first in-depth report, the event financial report. So when making this report, I'm just going to choose by month. That's just going to give me a good example to go by. And as soon as I pull this report, before I start breaking down this data, I'm going to instantly jump up to my customize friend. It's going to help me understand what data is displaying and make it for myself what I want to see. So the day range currently is showing from now, from the beginning of the year till now. And what instead I want to do is I want to see the date range be from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. And that's going to give me just a better understanding of everything that's happening this year. And I realized it's showing last year as well. So let's just do the beginning of this year to the end of this year. Perfect. And then the next thing we're going to do, my locations are fine. We'll see all of them. And we're going to head over to our grouping real quick. We're going to see that's by month. That's what I selected. So it's automatically populated that. Excellent. And then to our columns. And we're just going to cut out a couple of these that aren't as useful. So like prospect count, we're not interested in those or the tentative. I'm kind of just want to look at the definites, the period percent changes, and then sales goals are something we're going to hit in just a minute. So if you're curious about those, we'll come back to those. But first, let's just look at these. Let me update the report and pull and see what we have. Perfect. So this side over here is the month. So 1 is going to be January all the way to 12 being December. So that's kind of how that displays numerically. And then we can see how many definite events we have each month, which is going to be a good number for us to see like what our busy months are. We can see here that we have kind of a busy late summer fall season, and that's really good to know. Maybe we need to increase our staffing or our orders around that time. You can also see how many guests are coming during each season. A lot of maybe large events in January, counter to the amount of events. And then we get to the monetary aspect, which is super interesting. So these numbers are going to show the actual. And let me delve into what actual means, because you're going to see that a couple times through this presentation and throughout Tripleseat. What actual means is it's the total amount that from all of the events or from an event, not including taxes and fees. So that is going to be just items on the event, your total cost to the guest before taxes and fees. And so that's going to give you a good number of revenue and things of that nature when you're not including those taxes and fees. So if you ever do see grand total, though, on the other hand, grand total does describe the inclusivity of those taxes and fees. So that's going to be the difference between those two verbiages. You got actual and you got grand total. So this is our actuals, which is important for our financial team because they're going to be running a different report to gain access to how much in taxes that were paid by guests this year. So we can see our actual last year. You can see our actual for January, and then the previous period is actually going to be just the last month, since our periods right now are months. So this was how much was made in actuals in December. And then we can see both visually between the difference and also using this period percent change, what the difference is between the periods, how much money was made versus the last period. So we had an increase by 16.4% between those two periods. And then going between January and February, we had a decrease by about 50%. And this is a good, I think, piece of information that kind of shows you the ebbs and flows of your company and the revenue that you make. And it is good to kind of just like see how that's working or maybe areas you need to focus on. And then out here at the end, you have, I think, a more interesting part of the report is basically how much you made within that period in the previous year. So that's how much we made in January last year. That's how much we made in February last year. And you also are including those percent changes so that you can say, hey, look, most of our numbers are green. We did a lot better than last year. That's really cool. And in those areas where we didn't, why didn't we do better than last year? What did we do last year that we can improve on for this year? And I think it's good to just kind of have that statistics, be able to bring that up at meetings because a lot of people are looking to see, what to do for the year to come and where to grow. And speaking of growth and sales, I mentioned earlier those sales goals. I think we should go take a peek at those now because we have a report for that. I'm going to head back to reports. And we're going to slink on down right below the event financial to our event sales summary report. Now, this one I'm just going to do by quarter because I think month is a lot of data. Here we're going to get our sales summary by quarter. We're going to hop into the customize, but I just did this to show you that this report actually doesn't have a lot of customization. It's more about just showing how much in sales your the goal is, and if you met the goal, and if you didn't meet the goal, how much you were off by. So you can adjust the year that you're showing, the interval, and then whether you group by the owner of those goals or just by location in general. So I'm going to group it by location, mainly because I want to show you the Blue Water restaurant, which does have these goals. And you can see looking at the quarter one, it looks like we didn't reach that goal in quarter one. We missed the goal, only hit 78.38% of the goal, and we had this much remaining to total. But looking at the overall annual total, it looks like we did make the goal by the end of the year. We're going to have, we're over the goal. We did 135.64% of our goal, which is amazing. That's fantastic. And so that is probably, looking back at this, maybe we adjust our goals for quarter one or something of that nature. Or maybe we hit harder in quarter one to make those goals. So to set up these sales goals, as you can see that there are some of these locations that don't have any sales goals. And that's why they say 100%, because they're meeting the sales goals that don't exist. To set up these sales goals, you can go into your settings and there's a sales goals and you can set it up by user so that you have these sales goals and and that'll set it up for location. So you can see by location what your sales goals are and what you're trying to reach. Which can be helpful for different groups that are using that. So now we've delved into some reports for our financial fiends out there. But what if your job is not to evaluate the cost, but rather to be the instigator for more income? Maybe marketing or event manager, perhaps? Well, these next few reports we're about to get into go out to everyone out there who loves to look into the details and find a trend that will really rock the boat if capitalized on. So let's head back into our reports. And speaking of details, the first report we're going to dive into here is going to be my personal favorite report, the event details report. This report is by far the most expansive and customizable report we have within Tripleseat. And I could go on and on about it for hours, but to respect your time and mine, let's just make a sample, an example of what one of these reports could be used for. the tip of the iceberg for this powerhouse of a report. And I will mention again, specifically for the event details report, there is also a sister booking details report for if you have that new booking tab. So don't feel left out. You got your own expansive report. Perfect. So let's head in. I'm just going to head customize because we're going to go and make our own special report with our customize button. Lots of information, lots of tabs. Could be overwhelming, but not if you know what you're looking for. And what I'm looking for first is I definitely want to report on events from this year. And I want to look at everything this year. So I want to go from January 1st all the way to the end of December. I want to look at it all. Specifically, the kind of report I'm going to make here and what I'm doing here for our sample is that I want to look at our event types. Event types are basically a style of event that you can have within Tripleseat. This is a drop-down menu within your event details that you can basically prescribe a type of event to each event. And this can be helpful in reporting because you can tell which types of events are most popular within your location. So what I'm going to do here then is I'm going to include all the locations and I'm going to include all the users. But I just want to look at closed indefinite events. The financials tab, I'm not really going to mess with that. Or the custom fields tab. Those are used for if you have specific financials you're looking for in your report, or if you're using custom fields and you want to customize your report by those. But remember earlier when I told you we'd come back to our grouping and sorting? That's now. We're back. And we're going to group by that type. This is our event type. It's going to give us little groupings based on that. And I also want to sort by that type so that it's going to basically scale our report by that. And I'm going to do descending just so it alphabetically is going down. Perfect. And then I'm going to come over to our columns and let's make sure we get all the columns we're looking for. I'm going to do it a little backwards this time. I want the name. I want the date. I want the actuals. Let's take the actuals. Let's take the grand total. All right. And then let's take the owner and the location. And then let's get rid of everything else. Okay, well, let's get rid of everything else. We'll find them later. Okay. Okay. So let's go and let's get that owner. Let's get that location. There's a location. Let's get the owner. And you know what, while we're here, let's get the source. We don't need the start time. Now that we have those, let's move the owner up. Let's move our source up. We're kind of interested in those. And let's have those side by side. Perfect. Okay. Let's run that report and see what we get. Interesting. Perfect. So we can already see we have 831 rows. Very interesting. And something to note about this is that Tripleseat is only going to show 250 rows within the web page. That's just about as much that it can hold information-wise. Some of these reports are going to be gigantic if you have a bunch of events. So if you have those larger events, I'm going to tell you how to deal with those later. But just so you know, only 250 of those rows are going to show within Tripleseat. So there's going to be a way to look at the full report if you have these large reports like we have here. But looking into this report first, I'm going to just see if I see any trends. I see some meetings, ooh, look at that. That's a lot of holiday parties. Just a bunch. So that's going to be a really interesting result for me. I'm going to see all of these holiday parties versus the other types of events that we have. And I'm going to think, maybe we should capitalize on that. You know, maybe we should create more holiday specific marketing, or we should be using like a lead form that's geared towards holiday parties. If that's something that's, you know, very common at our location and bringing in a lot of revenue for us, then that's something that I want to, make sure that we are paying attention to based on that data. Now, let's say I saw that information and I was like, well, you know what? That's great for me, but I want our marketing team to know that. So I want somebody on our team to see that. How do I get that to them? The best way to do that is we're going to save our report. That's up here in the top right-hand corner. We're going to click on that save button, and it's going to pop up our little window where we can name our report. And I'm just going to name it event type report. And below, we can choose which users are going to have access to this report when we share it. So I can just share it with other admins, or maybe there's specific users I want to share this with. So, for example, our marketing team is all Alex's. So I'm going to share it with all of the Alex's. That's our marketing team, and I want to make sure they can see this. So I'm going to check them off. And when I save this, when they go into their Tripleseat, they should be able to access it. Now, where can they access it, and where can I access it again now that I've saved it? Because if I exit out of this, it's gone. Like, where did it go? Well, there's an easy way to get that. We're going to go back into our reports, and it was an event details report. So I'm going to come over to the saved reports to the right of my event details report, and it's going to be in this box over here. Now, you might notice you don't see it right away, and that's because this box is only so large. So to see all of the reports, you're going to have to scroll down within this box to get to it. So here it is down here. I found it again. I can open it back up. Bada bing, bada boom. She's back. We got it. Now, the next thing is, well, maybe I want to use this saved report as kind of like a template, and I want to make some adjustments. But I don't really, want to save it over the report, or maybe I want to make a new report using this. So you can use that saved report, come back in here and customize. And that can be your starting point. Rather than having to start completely from scratch, you can use a saved report as kind of like a template to make other reports. So we're going to come back in here, and maybe I decide, it was really interesting to see all those holidays reports. I really only want to see, events within the range of the fall and winter. So I'm going to come all the way down to August. I'm going to do August to December. I think that's a more interesting date range for me, more interesting, and I want to know information about that. So I'm going to update that report. And I'm going to start scrolling, seeing what information we have. We have those holiday parties. We got some birthdays. And then I notice at the bottom down here, we have all these events that have no type. Now that's something interesting to me because that's telling me that the event managers in my group are not assigning an event type to some of their events, which is not helpful because this means the rest of our data is not going to be as filled out. We can't tell how many birthdays in total or how many, bat mitzvahs in total if that's one of our, categories. So I would want to make sure that people saw this and that they, maybe that was a change that we made for the new year. A goal of ours was to make sure that we're ascribing these event types so that we can have better information going forward. And maybe we wanted to do a little bit more deep diving to this because, again, this is above 250 rows. We want to look into the full breadth of this information, like I was saying earlier. And how do I do that? Well, as it says here in the yellow text, we're going to export it to Excel. And so that's going to be this export button in the top right-hand corner next to the save. And it's super helpful for any reports that you have that are larger than 250, as well as if you want to do any additional like math or summation of reports. For example, let's say you want to know specifically what the average of all your holiday apart events are. So you can use like a mean function on the holiday party events, and maybe that'll help you adjust the food and beverage minimum because you've noticed it's too low. The events are spending so much money. We should increase our food and beverage minimum to make sure that there's not an event that is wasting our space when we could be charging them what other events are paying. So that's just something interesting that we can do when we export that. It does export as a CSV file, so if you have other spreadsheet spreadsheet applications that you use, those will work as well. So we can take that and we can do that. Or let's say I want to save this new report, because it's a new one. And I just used the base one to I updated it. So pressing save up here is going to give me two options since I originally started on a different saved report. My first option is I can overwrite it. Like the adjustments I made are better than the original report. I don't need it anymore. I'm just going to change it. Or I can create a fresh report by clicking this button up top, which is going to give me a brand new report. They're both going to be saved. I can name them different things. For example, if I do want to overwrite the existing report, sometimes I don't need to make big changes to overwrite it. I might just use this feature if I want to give different users access, because every time I click save when I come in, it's going to ask me which others I want to share it with. So maybe I decide I want to also share it with anyone who's a chef. Then I can click that and resave this report, and boom, now all the chefs have access to this report. And it's been updated, so it's only including the new date range that I've stated. So that's awesome. We're super excited about this. Again, like I said, I could talk about the event details report for hours, but I'm not going to. I'm actually going to move on because like I was showing here, we brought this source column in, and I think there's a couple more details about these sources and leads that we can dive into. I think that's another aspect of the site that people can really dig into for using for New Year's resolutions for the new year. And so what we're going to do is we're going to come back to our reports, and we're going to scroll down. And instead of an event details report or a booking details report, we're going to run our lead details report. Now, I just want to see year to date, so I'm going to pop that in here to see all the leads that have come in before now. So perfect. Let's jump to the customize first so we can get all the information we want. Yep, I want all the leads before now. I want leads that have been converted. And I want to make sure that I'm also including all of the columns that I want. So I could group this actually by that source that we talked about earlier, which I think would be interesting if we want to see leads that come from different sources. And that might help us decide maybe we want to use different sources or we want to focus more of our energy on the sources that are bringing in the most leads. So let's look at that. And then let's go to our columns and make sure that we're just getting the information about our leads that we think is interesting. So days to definite, I think, is interesting. The owner might be interesting. Referred by might be interesting. And we're not doing any turn down, so we'll take those off. And then we might want to know the lead form. We definitely want to know the source. And then once we kind of get rid of these other superfluous columns, yeah, we don't need the account, the convert. We'll take the converted submitted. Perfect. Okay. So now that we kind of have those, I'll get rid of the file. And we're going to update that. So now we have our columns, we have our report, and we sorted it by source. So first up, our first source is going to be our Tripleseat web lead. Now that's going to be leads that come in through your lead form. And so we're going to see, wow, there's a lot of those. Most of our leads are coming in through this. Down here at the bottom, we can see we have like one phone inquiry, a cold call. So there are other ways we're receiving leads, but it looks like most of our leads are coming in through the form. Now, this information would be super interesting for us now that we have this addition of the lead form, because groups can have multiple lead forms that they come in. You might have a holiday lead form. You might have like a lead form that you use just for Facebook or Instagram. And if each of those lead forms are a different lead form, this information over here would tell you basically which lead forms are, bringing in the most leads and kind of where is your marketing working, what's working, and how can you make that continue to work. Looks for this site, it all just has one lead form, the main lead form, but it's pulling in leads like nobody's business. And we love that. So that's great. So we know that our lead form's working. And so maybe we just want to make sure that our lead form has the right verbiage and that it's presenting to our customers correctly, because we know that a lot of traffic is coming through there. So we want to make sure that that looks like we want. And if we want to post any updates or anything, it would be nice to do that where the lead form is presented, because we know that people are going through there when they're submitting leads. So that's super interesting. Now, what's also super interesting is, you know, when we're looking at this, we can see when the leads were submitted. We can see when they were first viewed. And that means, let's say the lead is submitted on 1/2, but it wasn't viewed till 1/4. We know that our staff didn't look at it for 2 days since it was submitted. For all of these, it looks like they were looked at. Here's a good one. It came in on 1/6, but it wasn't viewed until 1/9. So that shows a little bit of a discrepancy from when it came in, and maybe it kind of shows you the pacing of the staff when they're looking at these leads. And then finally, kind of like when you're looking at that timeline of when the lead comes in and when it's viewed and when it's converted, like when that becomes an event, the last part of that timeline is going to be this far right column, the days to definite. And that's going to show you how many days from when the lead came in to when that lead was converted to an event. So for example, down here, this is 9 days. So it came in on 1/17, and then it was converted to an event, a definite event, 9 days after it came in. So it might be converted to an event, but it could live in a different status like prospect, where it's not for sure until it hits this days to definite. So that just gives you like an idea of this, the timeline of when your inquiries are coming in, and all of that information. So while leads may drive the incoming inquiries, another big business driver is the regulars at your establishment. Those people that keep coming back and you love them, our friends who just can't get enough. And since that is a constant stream of income, we want to make sure that we give those regulars the acknowledgement that they're due. And luckily, there is a report that can help you do just that. So I'm going to go back to our reports tab, and I'm going to scroll down because we're going to find our next report, which is our most booked contacts report. This is a fascinating report that is going to help us look at our contacts that keep coming back. So let's do year to date. And let's see which contacts came in most often this past year. Kind of help us, reward them or do things of that nature. So again, first thing I'm going to do is come to customize. I see that it's saying year to date. These are just contacts. So I want to make sure that those contacts submitted definite or closed events. And then I want to include all our locations. The contact details, something that I actually do want to include here is I want to make sure that they've opted into mass emails. Because what I'm looking to do here is, let's say I'm integrated with a marketing software that's going to allow me to send mass emails to people, to kind of send like a marketing blast. And I can specifically target those most booked contacts and tell them, hey, like, here's a deal for you. Thank you for prioritizing us. We want to prioritize you as well. Here's a deal that, will hopefully bring you back into our system, want you to recommend us to your friends, etc. So I'm going to look to make sure that those contacts have that on so that I can send them that email blast. And then I just want to make sure I have the right columns. So I have, whether they have that email opt-in, whether they, I want their email. That's pretty important. And just kind of like, some of those effects. We don't want the facts. That's not going to be super helpful. And then once we have that, we don't need those either, or the county. Perfect. So once we kind of have that down to what we're looking for, we can update that report to kind of show us what we have now that we're just including those who have opted in. So we can see up here at the top, perfect. We have Tyler Harrow, who's got 140 events with us. That's great. opted into emails, lots of actuals, and all of these ones at the top. I think these are great candidates for us to reach out to and let them know, hey, we value your business and we would love to continue collaborating with you or having you come back, which is great. Now this is kind of this is our last report within the regular Tripleseat reports. Not the end quite of the webinar, but I do want to suggest for any of you that have questions on this report, on any of the reports I've gone over so far, please feel free to send in those questions into the Q&A section. We are happy to help answer any questions that you might have. I just wanted to make sure to mention that because from here on out, we're going to be going in a little bit of a different direction than we've been before. Now, I'm sure some of you are just in wonder at the sheer versatility and depth of these reports. But what if I told you that this is just a dip in the lake compared to the depth of the reporting Tripleseat can offer your team? Well, hop aboard my ship for one last reporting voyage, but this time into the ocean, as we head into our advanced reporting with Tripleseat Insights Plus. So to find Tripleseat Insights Plus, you're going to head to Reports. And this is an add-on product, so it'll only be available if you've purchased it or if you're on the hotel core, as that comes with that plan by default. So you're going to see up in the right-hand corner next to your exported reports, you're going to see your advanced reporting, and that's going to bring you to this screen here. Now, this may look completely foreign, very strange, different than the other reporting. And that's because there's just so much more information here. I'm actually going to toggle the side to slim mode so that we can see everything that's going on here. A couple different tabs on the side that are going to show dashboards, booking, events, and sales reports. And we can go through a couple different reports as we go through this section. The first one is going to be dashboards. You might actually recognize this dashboard because it is, in part, very similar to what's going to show up on your dashboard if you have the dashboard graphs enabled. Now that is, if you were to add a graph up here, you'd see it looks very similar to the dashboard in that advanced reporting. Now, the only difference in that advanced reporting is going to be that you can have multiple dashboards and there's going to be slightly more options for you. And this is great, more customization, and it's all in the same place as you're finding your other reporting. But just wanted to mention that in case it was recognizable to those of you who have that enabled on your dashboard. So let's start by adding a graph to this dashboard. I just created a new one over here on the side by clicking the plus create button. And you can name this dashboard anything. So specifically, if you wanted to say like, this is for, this is for our marketing team. If you wanted to, you could rename it that. And then you now have a named dashboard. Next, we can click Add Graph to look at the selection of different graphs we can add. And there's a lot of different graphs, so I'm just going to add a couple, see what they look like. I think the first one that I really like is events by owner. Now, this is great because it's going to show me different owners of events within my site and what the grand totals of those events are for those users. You can also see the breakdown on each of these columns for prospect, tentative, definite, closed, and lost. Which gives you kind of a better idea of where people's events are. For example, this person has a lot of tentative events, so maybe that's something that they're working on moving to closed. Next thing about these graphs that I want to go into is that this is just the base, like what they look like by base, but you can actually change them and filter them by using the funnel on the top right hand of that graph. So we currently have it displaying the event grand total, but maybe we would just want to see the actuals or the event counts. We can change that here. Also, you notice there was a big column for other, so currently it's only showing the top 10 data. If I wanted to see more, I would uncheck this, and it would show me everybody, which I'm not going to uncheck yet, but you could. You can also change the event dates. the regions that are showing and things of that nature. Just kind of very similar in terms of the filtering to what we saw in the other one, just in a kind of concise location. By saving that, I now can see event count, which I think is another fascinating aspect. Let's add another graph. Let's do leads by source. We were talking about this earlier, and I think it's fascinating. So let's look into it a little bit more. So I'm going to pull this graph over here. All the graphs can be moved and mobilized around to different aspects of your dashboard, completely customizable. And you can actually increase the size of your graphs as well. So I'm going to make this larger so I can kind of see everything a little bit better. And as we already know, almost all of our leads are coming in through the web lead. We have this huge column of 6,022. Nothing else even compares, but it's good to have that information. And again, we could customize this further here. Let's add some more graphs. Let's do events by status. Now, I think this is a cool graph because this kind of shows you basically within your site, what are the statuses of your events and how many events do you have in each status. Right now it's showing it by event grand total, but like we did up here, we could change it to numericals if we just wanted to know. But maybe I wanted to know how much money is in my definite events for the future. Let's say I want to see all events from today to the end of this fiscal period. So now I'm just looking at events within that time frame. And I can see by the end of this fiscal period, we have quite a few definite and prospects that might increase our definite amount here. So that's some good information for us to see and kind of have a report on. Now, like I said, there's many graphs, so you can customize this and change this and see what is important information for you just to like peek at for your team. And it's all going to be saved in your little dashboards here. Next, I would love to take a peek at some of our reports in the events reports. So the first one we're going to do is our event productivity, just to kind of give you a peek at what these graphs look like, or what, not these graphs, these reports look like. So this is an example of one of these reports. This is the productivity report, which is going to show any sort of actions that are enabled on events. For example, what's showing here is new definite. So that means the event has changed to definite and when that occurred and all the other information that is around that action. And then next we can establish some additional information about this as well. For example, we can adjust the columns on this report. It's very similar to the columns we looked at over there, but it's all in one little concise column that we can check and uncheck what's important to us. Like we want the created date on there. Fantastic. Next, we have the groupings, and that's going to be these at the top with the arrows next to them. That's showing these kind of like bracketed information that you see around this report. And that's how you can kind of change that information. So for example, maybe we don't want the location to be what's editing that, and maybe we want instead to do our market segment in a descending manner. You can also add any of your current columns to this grouping segment. So let's say I want to group it by event owner. I can just drag that up here. Now, the order of the groupings is a hierarchy. So the market segment is the first grouping, then activity, then event owner. So maybe I just want to group it by event owner first before activity. And now that's going to show me the event owners and then the types of activities that they've accomplished. Next, we can go to our filters up here to access more additional information. So currently what we're looking at is the start of this month to the end of this month. Now, that's really interesting because we're not looking at specific dates. We're just looking at a general time frame based upon the date that we're looking at this report. And that's kind of how these reports work in terms of themselves. You can look at the start of a fiscal period, 10 days ago, yesterday, all the way to the start of this year if you need. So we can change that, adjust that, and there's a lot of other filters in here that you can use to adjust what you're seeing. Now that I've updated that report, maybe I want my team to see this report. So what I can do to show this to my team is I can save it as a bookmark. So I can bookmark this report by clicking this little Save Bookmark button here in the top right. And that's going to create a little box for me to name this. So I'm going to name this Event Productivity And I'm going to save that, and it's going to pop on the left over here, right below the report type that I have. It's going to show the little bookmark, and it's also showing me that it's not shared. So I'm currently the only one who has access to this bookmark. And like we had in our regular reports, we might want to share this with other people in our group. So to do that, you're going to click on the 3 little dots next to it to see the bookmark actions. And a little share is going to pop up, and it's going to show you everyone within your company. Any users that are on Tripleseat that you want to share it with, you can check them off, and that will show up in as a bookmark below that report within their advanced reporting as well. Now, now that we've shared this, you can send this to any member of your team, and I'm hoping that through watching this video, you have each found something that is worthy of sharing with your team, possibly even this video. And as a reminder, a recording of this webinar will be sent to the email address you entered when registering for this webinar. So I want to thank everyone who joined us today for joining us for this reporting pop-up. And I hope you all came out with at least one piece of information that you learned or that you want to put into use, and that each of you finds at least one New Year's resolution for your business using these tools. Now, our team is going to stick around for the remainder of the time to answer any questions you may have. And if any questions do come up later, please reach out to our team by clicking the Help Question button in the top right-hand corner of any page of your Tripleseat site. Or you can send a ticket into support@tripleseat.com. Thank you all so much, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your year.